Gulf of Mexico, including Exxon, Chevron, Shell. After about 2 hours, we completed the 5,200-foot journey to reach the ocean floor, where we hoped to see a vast, beautiful array of sea life, now 4 years after the official, quote, end of the disaster. We instead discovered a virtual moonscape. Those species that could outrun the torrent of oil did, and those that couldn't were long since buried deep beneath a blanket of oil that remained, extending across nearly 3,000 square miles of the ocean floor. As scientist Andres Test told me, when another expedition comes here in 100 or 1,000 years, they'll be able to say, okay, this is the 2010 oil spill. From there, the oil migrates up the food chain, infiltrating and harming every aspect of the natural environment, from phytoplankton to humans. And like so many other fossil fuel disasters, and disasters fueled by fossil fuels occurring daily across the planet, the scale of harm is daunting. Stretching from microfauna to the largest mammals, destroying health, economic, social, and political well-being, causing generations of harm, exterminating species, and killing people. The primary assignment of the chief scientist, Dr. Samantha Joy, who was leading the expedition, was to assess this ongoing disaster. But what she was really excited about was found several miles away in an area of the ocean untouched by BP's disaster. It's where species reside that live off of oil and gas, as it seeps in teeny tiny amounts bubbling up from the ocean floor. It's these little worms here, feeding off of oil and gas hydrates at the bottom of the ocean floor. Oil and gas are naturally occurring resources. When left to their own devices, they exist in harmony with nature. Like many other natural resources, humans and other species have cohabitated with fossil fuels for millennia. It's only in the last 150 years or so that the fossil fuel industry and its backers have turned these natural resources into what many of us call weapons of mass destruction. Today, the extraction, production, transport, and use and disposal of fossil fuels and related products like petrochemicals are the single largest source of the climate crisis. We cannot tackle the climate crisis without tackling fossil fuels. They are also the source of the daily assault on the natural world and on the human rights of people throughout the world, disproportionately targeting the already marginalized, particularly BIPOC and low-income communities the world over. The continued use and abuse of fossil fuels by the fossil fuel industry and its backers is inimical to human rights and the rights of nature. Next slide. Policymakers have known this for decades. This is a New York Times headline from 1988. It reads, "Global warming has begun, experts tell Senate. Sharp cut in burning of fossil fuels is urged to battle shift in climate." This is not a mystery. It hasn't been a mystery for a very long time. Next slide, please. We've also known who the perpetrators are. We've known this for decades as well. Since 1988, more than half of all industrial greenhouse gas emissions can be traced to just 25 fossil fuel companies. Here are their names. Not a mystery. These companies and those who back them have shown us for nearly 2 centuries how they treat natural resources, using them to amass power, deepen inequality, exercise control, wage wars, and cause widespread harm. They are the last companies to which we should now turn over control of the sun, the wind, or the waves, or entrust with devising solutions to the problems they have created and perpetuated long after we've known the alternatives exist, can be accessible, equitable, affordable. You can go to the next slide. And the next. Jobs, building and sustaining localized, renewable, equitable, distributed, renewable energy. Livable, walkable, healthy cities. Jobs in the green economy, public transport. Entrusting protection of the forests, waters, and land to indigenous peoples. Regenerative rather than extractive societies. These are things that work. We've learned them from those on the front lines who have identified the harms since mass extraction began, and have been living, devising, and advocating for the just and equitable alternatives. Next slide. And the next. I've spent 2 decades witnessing firsthand the harms and the resistance. Next slide. The resistance has spread, originating from those on the front lines, leading and demanding and creating change. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. Next. 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 Stop there. But the end of the fossil fuel era is not inevitable. The industry and its backers are well aware that they now face an existential threat to their survival. As I wrote in my most recent article for Rolling Stone, self-pitch, the fossil fuel industry is under no illusion about which candidate and political party most aggressively support their interests, nor about what this election means to its survival. Giving massively and almost entirely to Republican candidates, conservative causes, and Donald Trump. No, the end of the fossil fuel industry is not inevitable, but it can be one. Thank you.
Just to check, did you have any additional asks specifically of the judges today?